Now, Fortnite Reload is a very all-of-a-sudden and unexpected thing that happened, but I am very hyped about it, and it's been super fun already in the 3 days I've played with it. I have to say I did not see this coming at least this soon, because we are already getting a Chapter 2 OG in a few months, but nevertheless, this has been a great release, and even though I don't really like OG that much, I'd be ignorant to say that a lot of people don't love it, so it makes sense that they're going to bring back Chapter 1 in some way this chapter, and I think this was a great way to do it. I'm going to get into it in a little bit, but I think it really does fix all my problems that I had with OG in general. And it's overall perfect for this season because it really does fit that chaotic vibe we get from Chapter 5 Season 3. So with all that out of the way, let's just get into why I think Fortnite Reload fixed OG's main problem. Now listen, I know OG wasn't meant to be a remix or anything like that, but it's kind of what I expected and wanted to see in it, but it's not really what we ended up getting, which does kind of suck for me, but I know a lot of people out there wanted to see OG in its regular season format with very little changes, but for me personally, I don't really care for the first 4 seasons of Chapter 1. They don't really interest me, and they don't really compare to any other season that we've got after them, and for me personally, that's just how I feel. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that, but I think objectively, there's a lot more going on in the newer seasons than there was in these first 4 seasons. So that's why I was hoping Fortnite would remix them a little bit and add a lot more to the OG aspect of the game than just have it be Chapter 1. I think there could have been more stuff that added on to the gameplay that we hadn't seen before but still felt like they were part of Chapter 1 in a way. Maybe even some new POIs or stuff like that, or new items, things that really did bank off of Chapter 1 but were still new and refreshing to the gameplay. I was still very happy to go back to seasons like 5, 7, 8, and 9, but at the same time I did feel a little bored because I had already experienced them before and it wasn't really that different for me at all. Now, to be fair, the numbers do show this wasn't really needed, but I think a lot of the people that did enjoy OG were players that weren't even playing the game at all, and a lot of players that were still around for the game probably didn't enjoy it as much, and I do know this because a lot of people have told me this. There definitely are people that did enjoy both, but there definitely was a group of people that found it kind of boring and kind of dry, as in it just didn't do much to change up the game in any way. But this new reload mode really fixed everything for me. Not only is there a new core mechanic in here that adds everything to the remixing, but on top of that, it doesn't just bank off of what OG Chapter 1 did. It has stuff from 2, 3, and 4 also in here. Obviously, those are a little smaller compared to how much we got from Chapter 1, but at the same time, it adds a lot to it in my opinion and still makes it feel a lot different than OG did in Chapter 4. And from what I know, unless I'm being dumb or just not remembering stuff, they have been adding some things over time, which is very cool to see. And one other small thing that I think is really interesting is you can find some mythics all around the map in certain chests and some exotics all around the map in certain chests, which is just super fun, super interesting, and I love the uniqueness to that. They're not everywhere to keep the game from being busted, but you can get a little bit lucky and find some, and I think that's really cool. With all that, they made the map much smaller to give off a more chaotic vibe, and I think this makes up for the 40 player count. And even with the map being very small, it has some of Chapter 1's best POI, so you can go POI to POI and really have no mid ones in between. And this is really, like I said, where the chaos comes from. And even though I love Season 3, instead of it being car chaos, it's a lot more gun chaos, and if you're in builds, it's a whole nother version of chaos. So for people that do like that chaotic vibe but like a lot more skill in their gameplay, I think it's perfect for them and gives a great alternative to Battle Royale in general. Now, on top of all that, and most of the reason why we have a small map and a 40 player count is the new core mechanic of getting rebooted. This game is most playable in squads, and that's the reason why there's only a squads mode and no solo. I did hear some people asking on Twitter for a solo version of this, which makes no sense because you need a team to reboot yourself. So a solo version of this would just be a smaller version of Battle Royale with 40 players, and it would just not be that fun in my opinion. But I do get why they are asking for it. They want to play an OG version of the game just with a solo aspect to it. I understand that, but it just wouldn't work for this mode in general. But with all that aside, I think the rebooting mechanics is very fun because when you do eliminate a full squad, it's kind of like you're going against the clock in a way. To be able to eliminate every single teammate in that 40-second count is very fun to go against. I just love how it feels, and it makes the pacing of the game way better. I literally said this a few videos ago that in builds I feel like the pacing is a little bit slow because a lot of people tend to camp, but here I don't feel like it was slow at all. Everyone's coming at each other even when they are building, and I will say this game mode is pretty sweaty, but it's a fun type of sweaty that really does challenge you as a player and not just by how much you can build. And it just makes the game way more engaging. Same way I feel that Season 3 is super engaging because you really do have to be on your toes. I love when this game really puts you in a situation where you cannot stop for a minute. You have to just go, go, go. And that's really what I've been getting from this new new reload mode, and I love that about it. Like, for example, when all of your teammates die and you kind of have to stay alive for a minute so they can all reboot, I love the way that feels. You have to strategize a little bit on hiding. Sure, you can just camp, but sometimes if you're in the middle of tilted, it's a little hard. For me, this has already been miles better than OG, because like I said, I just didn't like the OG didn't feel much different from what it once was in Chapter 1. But here, with all the diversity that we have in the loot pool, which by the way, this is one of the best loot pools we've ever gotten, and the new changes to the map, and of course, the core mechanic that we now have, I really do feel like they cooked on this one and made it feel so much more different and fixed every problem that OG had in general when in comparison to Chapter 1. And some people aren't going to agree with that, and that's okay. I know a lot of people don't like change to how they play games. I understand that, but for me personally, this has been amazing. But yeah, overall, I just love the way that this pays homage to every single player out there. I think it was done amazingly and really gave us a little bit of everything. Just a lot of Chapter 1, of course, but that is what a lot of the player base wants, so you know what? Give them what they need. But there's a few more topics I want to get into about this reload mode, because the potential that this game mode has in so many departments really does interest me, and I'm excited to see what they do with it in the future. So I want to go over some of my ideas for what they could really do to make it even better than it already is. Now, I never really thought Chapter 1 should have stayed around from a player standpoint, also from a company standpoint. I just don't think it makes much sense. For starters, from a player standpoint, OG would have got incredibly boring over time. Anyone can deny this, but it just would have. I heard a few people saying that Chapter 1 never got boring, which I don't even want to hear that in the first place, because I remember a lot of people complaining about the game getting dry halfway through Chapter 1's runtime. But on top of that, all of those seasons were new at the time, so of course it's going to be less boring to go through them. And on top of all of that, because Fortnite was such a new game at the time, it was much harder to get burnt out of it. But now with Fortnite being out for 7 years, people get bored of OG so much faster and burnt out so much quicker. I say give it 2, maybe 3 months and they're done. In fact, I wouldn't even be surprised if some people would start to say that this ruined OG for them because they got bored of it after that 2-month, 3-month span. And from a business perspective, I've heard so much people saying that if Fortnite kept OG around, this would benefit the game so much and make them so much money. But this is really not true. Taking away the aspect of this being a yearly thing, Epic would stop getting their spikes every year that bring people back to the game to try out the new chapter after OG. Because if the game was always around, no one would be rushing to come play it when it gets announced that there's a new OG game mode. Nobody's gonna care if it's around all year, especially because they would have already been burnt out of it 6 months ago, so they wouldn't really have any initiative anyways to come back and play it. And besides all of that, Epic wouldn't be able to announce that, oh, OG's here, because it's already been here for the entire year, so what's the new thing that's gonna make everyone come back? But I think it's much different with Reload. Now, if Reload is to stay around, which I think only makes sense, this game mode has a lot of potential for what it could do, but if they don't do this, this game mode shouldn't stay around because it's going to die. I think if Epic were to start this in Chapter 1 and then slowly move through each season of Chapter 1, obviously I think we're starting with the first 4 seasons right now, but there's a lot more changes in the seasons after, so we can go to Season 5, Season 6, Season 7, etc., all for Chapter 1. Then after we've rounded all of Chapter 1, we can go then to Chapter 2. Do all the seasons of that, and then go to 3, and then 4, and then maybe 5, depending if we're on Chapter 6 at this time. I'm not really sure if we want to go right back to Chapter 5 after it's already done though, so this might take a few more months to go through. Either way, this is just my idea that I have for it. But besides all that, what I think would be even cooler is if they remix chapters together. To have agency on the map with Mega City at the same time would be my dream. Oh my god, bro, I'd love to see that. Now, sure, this would turn some OG players away, but for some of them that just like the pacing of the game in general, they'll probably stay around to play it because they just like how the gameplay and the core mechanic is anyway. So they'll be fine when it switches to new chapters with new maps. And even though a lot of players are OG players that will come back to the game, I can assure you there are a lot of people from Chapter 2, Chapter 3, and maybe even Chapter 4 that would come back to this game to experience the seasons and chapters that they loved in a new way. Overall, I think this mode has been great, and I think it has so much potential that I hope Epic does not waste. They've been doing a lot of things good lately. I've liked every single season of this chapter. This mode is amazing, and I'm really hyped to see where they go from here in general. So with all that out of the way, I really do hope they cook with this mode. I think they can do a lot with it, and I just hope they do not waste this at all.